Welcome to Reading Lab from TOEFL Lab. This is the first lesson in our Reading Lab series, where we'll break down the TOEFL reading section step by step. Today, you'll learn how the section works, what its 3 reading tasks require, and the key skill they share. Let's get started. If your TOEFL reading prep is still built around long passages and page after page of academic text, here's something worth knowing: that version of the test is gone. TOEFL Reading didn't just add a few new questions, it was rebuilt. 3 short task types, about 50 items in the base structure. A structure that adjusts based on how you're doing as you go. If you're training for stamina, one long passage after another, you're training for a test that no longer exists. This lesson is about what actually replaced it, and what to do differently because of it. Here's the version most students still picture: 2 long academic passages, each around 700 words with about 10 detail-end inference questions per passage. Reread a paragraph, scan for the answer, repeat. That structure rewarded one skill above all others: staying accurate through a long stretch of dense text. The current reading section works differently. You get 3 distinct task types: complete the words, read in daily life, and read an academic passage, adding up to about 50 items in about 30 minutes, delivered in 2 stages that respond to how you're performing. The exact number can vary as the section adapts. Notice what changed. It isn't 3 variations on the same long passage question. It's 3 genuinely different tasks, each testing a different kind of reading. That distinction is the whole lesson. Here's the idea to hold on to, and to be clear, this is TOEFL Lab's own way of describing it, not an official TOEFL term. Each task in this section asks you to do a different job as a reader. One task asks you to recognize a word quickly. One asks you to use a short text for exactly what it's for. One asks you to find and prove exact evidence. Same section, 3 different reading behaviors, and preparing for only one of them, the way most study plans do, leaves you unprepared for the other 2. First job: recognize. Complete the words gives you a short academic paragraph, 70 to 100 words, with the second half of every second word missing. On screen, you'd see something like this: a sentence about community gardens, gaps sitting inside familiar words, and if you're reading it right, those gaps resolve almost on their own. Watch what's actually happening there. You're not spelling from memory. You're reading the sentence for meaning, and the missing letters snap into place because the word already makes sense in context. It's a reading task wearing a spelling task's clothes. The mistake is treating it like a spelling quiz, staring at the gap itself instead of the sentence around it. That's backwards. The sentence tells you the word. The gap is just where you confirm it. Prep change: practice covering the second half of ordinary words in sentences you already understand and reconstruct them from context. You're training recognition speed, not memorizing a word list. Second job: use. Read in daily life gives you something much shorter, 15 to 150 words, and it looks like something you'd actually encounter: an email, a notice, a schedule, a string of text messages. Picture a pool schedule update, new lap swim hours, an early Friday closing, a note for members with evening passes. 2 or 3 questions follow, and they're not subtle. What is this notice for, and what would a reader actually do with it? The mistake here is the opposite of the last task: overanalyzing a 50-word notice as if it were an academic passage, rereading it 3 times looking for meaning that just isn't there. Prep change: practice real short texts, emails, receipts, notices, and answer 1 purpose question and 1 detail question in under 30 seconds. This task rewards speed and function, not depth. Third job: prove. Read an academic passage gives you a short expository passage, about 200 words, usually 2 or 3 brief paragraphs on a subject like history, economics, or life science. 5 questions follow, and together they test 5 different things: a factual detail, a vocabulary, word and context, and inference, the relationship between 2 paragraphs, and the purpose behind something the author wrote. Picture a short passage on urban beekeeping. Paragraph 1 explains why cities are letting people keep rooftop hives. Paragraph 2 raises an unexpected problem: a few hives in one area can outcompete wild native bees for nearby food. Paragraph 3 describes a program that pairs new hive permits with new native plants. One question might simply ask what paragraph 3 is doing in relation to the problem paragraph 2 raised, and the answer lives in a specific sentence, not a general sense of the passage. The mistake here is answering from a rough impression of the paragraph instead of the exact sentence that proves it. On a long legacy passage, that vague memory habit sometimes still worked because there was room to be a little wrong. On 200 words, there usually isn't. Prep change: for every practice question, locate the strongest sentence-level evidence for your answer, though some answers depend on more than once. Put those three side by side, and the point of this lesson comes into focus. Complete the words is testing recognition speed. Read in daily life is testing fast, functional understanding. Read an academic passage is testing precise evidence finding across a short text. Same section, same clock, 3 different reading behaviors, which means a single, generic read carefully and answer strategy will help you a little on all 3 and prepare you fully for none of them. One more structural piece changes how you should pace yourself. Reading is delivered in 2 stages called modules, and here's the fact worth remembering. Your performance in Module 1 affects what you see in Module 2. Think of it, and this is TOEFL Lab's own shorthand, not an official scoring rule, as the section noticing how you're doing early and adjusting from there. That means the instinct to rush through the first module just to get to the rest of the test works against you. Protecting your accuracy early matters more than most students assume. This isn't about knowing an exact formula or an exact number. It's about not treating every question in the section as equally low stakes, especially at the start. Here's the study plan version of everything above. Stop training one long passage endurance skill and calling it reading practice. Train 3 separate behaviors on purpose: recognizing words in context, reading short real-world text for function, and locating exact evidence in a short academic paragraph. And protect your accuracy early, since your Module 1 performance shapes the difficulty path you get in Module 2. If you only remember one line from this lesson, make it this one: same section, 3 different jobs. Prepare for the job that's actually in front of you, not the test you remember studying for. This lesson is the foundation for everything else in Reading Lab. Next, we go deep on one job at a time, starting with how to actually find evidence fast in read an academic passage. Subscribe to Reading Lab, and I'll see you in the next lesson.